is Liliana Lopez, and currently I am the supervisor of world languages in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I oversee Spanish, French, and Chinese languages, grades 3 to 12. Before leaving the classroom, I was a Spanish teacher for 12 years, and I had the opportunity to bring PBL to my classroom and to my students. It really transformed my teaching. It engaged students to become passionate learners of a language, and I'm really excited to share with you what I've learned today based upon task design, and I look forward to us going through this PBL journey together. Before I continue, I would also like to thank Lauren Scheller for helping and for collaborating with me in preparing this presentation. So in the next 20 minutes, I will provide, in today's webinar, you'll gain initial understanding of what it is, task designs, for authentic language use, task designs for collaboration, and I will also share ideas on how to assess for collaboration. Please remember, PBLL is not a research project where students explore an extended question. It is also not completely front-loading content and then asking students to create their project. PBLL is designed with the end in mind. All work that students complete is intended to help them complete their project. That's why carefully designed tasks are so critical to the project design process. I believe Yao spoke about this in her presentation. I wanted to share with you the descriptors of what the 21st century world language classroom should look like from the 21st Century Skill Map created by ACFL and P21.org. Please notice the importance of tasks, as you see it there. In PBLL, tasks are used to help provide students with language and practice opportunities to move forward within their project. I will begin with a general overview of language functions and their alignment to tasks. Let's begin by looking at the language functions on the left-hand column, and then the tasks that are associated with them on the right hand. I will highlight one real-world example from each slide, so I'm going to share 3 slides with you. Let's look at the language function of compare. So we want students to use the language to compare. What evidence will they provide for us? What task are we going to have them do so that they can show that the language is comparing, that they're able to compare? So within, students, for example, students in a Chinese world language classroom would use a compare language function with the following task. Within a PBL project on the right to education for all, so within that big project, that umbrella project, they would read a student's school schedule from a school in Taiwan, and then they would compare and contrast with classes, with their own classes. Which ones are the same, which classes are different. Students will use a Venn diagram. They could actually make that Venn diagram as well into 3 and compare schools in private education, schools in public, and schools in public education. So they're using the language function compare with the task of compare and contrasting schools within this bigger project. Here are more language functions and tasks associated with language functions. Students in a Spanish world language classroom would view a bullfighting poster, and they'll also view a PETA poster in order for them, because we would want them to infer, we want that language function. They would have the task to provide or give examples and support details from both posters to begin to understand why bullfighting is such a controversial topic. And that's within the bigger project of, is bullfighting torture or is it art? It's just that bigger project. Here is our last slide with language functions and tasks associated with language functions. Students in a world language classroom would need to justify and persuade adults to use a specific kind of social media site. Hello? Okay, social media site. So the language function would be to justify and persuade, and the task would be to give support for their reason why the adult world would need to use social media today and provide all the benefits in their personal and work life. In the words, after viewing these 3 slides, we can really understand what a task is. Make sure that everyone can hear me still.
Yes, your sound is good. There have been a few clicks here and there, but overall it's fine. No problem.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, it seems like the cable is here. Okay, so let's take a look at these words. When we look at task, when we think about task and what the definition of a task, it's really the 101 things people do in everyday life, at work, at play, and in between. So in real world tasks, think about what language students need to do to complete these tasks. Let's think about the ways of using language. When traveling in a country where it is spoken, the tasks are ask for directions, and they would have to understand the responses. They would purchase tickets and book hotel rooms. Tasks are used to help provide students with language and practice opportunities to move forward within the project. If they study at a university in a country where it's spoken, the task, they would have to understand the lectures, take notes, read academic materials, talk with other students. In the ways of using the language, they have to become knowledgeable about the history and the culture of the country where it is spoken. So the task would be to read about the history and the culture, to understand the plays and the context and the history, movies and the other performances, interview people from the country, to provide legal assistance to native speakers who are immigrants to this country. The task would be to gather personal statistical information, explain legal requirements, explain social and cultural expectations, describe procedures, understand and answer questions. So the functions and the tasks are connected, they align. When thinking about the end in mind, we are going to start with our driving question from our Healthy Lifestyle PBLL project. Our project comes from a school where the school and the community rallied around healthy living, and the students of French, they devised a French campaign. Knowing our project idea and our driving question, let's think about possible authentic language use in this project. So our driving question is, how can we promote a healthy lifestyle within our community? From the driving question, we need to identify the authentic language that will be used in the project process and in the culminating product. With this project, we are asking students to present information and supporting evidence such that listeners can follow a line of reasoning and also understand that wellness practices vary across cultures. Ideally, we want students to understand there is not one way to be healthy, and it is defined differently by different cultures. They should want to promote varieties of culturally authentic ways of being healthy. The individual task is to complete a healthy living journal. The team task is of a group presentation using the media form of student choice. Students will share journal entry with another student to find similarities and differences. We are also assuming here that students can say, for example, me too, or I don't do that, or I do that. This will also help them reflect on their own writing as they continue to write in their journal. This can be an ongoing task throughout the project or modified slightly each time. It could also take the form of a gallery walk, a peer revision, or an interview. In order to create a healthy living journal, students will use the language function of describing processes and explaining. Some related structures they will need are on Monday, and they would also have to know certain irregular verbs. Tier 1 vocabulary would include sports, exercise, expressions, adverbs of frequency. Tier 2 vocabularies includes balanced diet, healthy living, to exercise. So we need to ensure that we design tasks around those language functions and vocabulary. Now that we have a better understanding of tasks, let's discuss task designs for collaboration. This is happening in your classroom. Students are collaborating with language, and I don't want you to forget what's in your toolbox. So I'm just going to share some examples of what that looks like. Here's one possibility. Students will share a journal entry with another student to find the similarities and differences. This will also help them reflect on their own writing as they continue to write in their journal. This can be an ongoing task throughout the project or modified slightly each time. The task is done in concentric circles where students complete a speed dating type activity. They would share a recent journal entry with the person across from them. They will respond with, oh, I do or I don't do that. This would also help to differentiate and allow everyone to participate. Additionally, sometimes these concentric circles are also called like inside-outside circles. Additionally, students can show their writing as they explain it to students that need the scaffold. Upon completion, the class can create a list of healthy habits on a wall in the classroom by having students share out what others do that is healthy. So we know the language function of the task, explaining and describing using temporal phrases. The situation they're given is a discussion with a friend about sharing healthy practices. Like, let's take a look at the components of a task. Their role is a French-speaking friend. They are giving the specific instructions. Their optional items to provide during the task are resources or tools. In this case, they might need sentence stems or they might need sentence starters. Sometimes you want to provide a manipulative that will help them interact with the language, maybe cards that are discussion prompts, for example, with questions that they can, guiding questions that will help them with the conversation. Remember to have provided opportunities to practice the language they are using in the task. This should not be the first time they are practicing this type of language, but it might be the first time they have an extended interpersonal interaction about their journals. So it would lead from the journals to collaborative tasks. When we think about assessing collaboration, because now we have a better understanding of tasks for collaboration, let's make sure we first assess ourselves by using the gold standard PBL rubric from the Buck Institute for Education. And what we need to view here is that we want to take a look at how a PBL project is considered effective. And it's when the project has the following strengths. Important students have the key knowledge, understanding, and success. Important success skills are explicitly targeted to be taught and assessed, including critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and self-management. Collaboration is a skill that must be taught and must be assessed. Tasks should be facilitated in a way students will collaborate and be assessed by, they will self-assess, they will peer assess, and they will also have that teacher assessment part. Here's an example of a collaboration rubric within a big PBL project. And these are for grades 6 through 12. And we want to take a look always with what's at the right-hand side, which is at standard, or agreeing to what's above standard. And if we're talking about language classroom, the above standard would definitely be staying in the target language the majority of the time. So that's how the student would take responsibility for oneself, and we would look at how the student helps the team, which could also be a way for the world language classroom. We would say that the student helps the team stay in the target language, and then respect others is by using kind words in the target language and promoting and supporting risk-taking in the target language in the classroom. So above standard could be added to the right-hand column, thinking about what's best practice in the world language classroom. When thinking about collaboration, we could also use a more simpler rubric, which can look something like this and be written in the target language. And knowing our novice learners, we can use these pictures and get them to understand still learning in a target language sometimes and almost always. And this is something that they would use throughout the year, and this language they will acquire in context, and they'll understand what it would say in the target language. As stated previously, students must take a proactive approach to logging collaboration and team tasks. And this is something that they can do as well, and it depends if they can do it in a target language or not, if they have the target language, but this is something that also can be taught in the classroom. It is highly recommended students take part of making their own team contracts, which help them have a voice in the collaboration process. This can also be changed to target language depending on the proficiency level of the students, and or we could use visuals here. Students should always self-assess, they should peer assess, and they should use logs. And the teachers can also observe and have checkpoints along the way. And this could be also done through various teacher written observations as well. In closing, when thinking about tasks, we want to make sure that we reach all our students. And how do we assure that all our students are active participants? Yes, we have to design tasks for authentic language use, and we must also design tasks for collaboration. All should be assessed. However, what we must immediately do with our students in our classroom is get to know who's in the classroom. And remember, we have students that are introverts and extroverts. So it's important to build this classroom culture where they're going to be comfortable even participating in these type of tasks. Make sure you survey students to get to know their skills, strengths, and dispositions. Make sure you have team building activities, collect important data, distribute tasks based on student strengths and areas of growth, democratize conversation and use protocols, provide moments of learner reflection, and foster a team culture in your classroom. And knowing that all students can complete all tasks, they will be supportive of each other, and they're going to want to ensure that everyone in the classroom has these great opportunities. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share ideas with you, and please know Lauren and I can be contacted via Twitter or email.